Bills fans, welcome to Monday Morning Breakdown. I'm John Murphy alongside Chris Brown, Bills Insider from BuffaloBills.com. What kind of dance are you doing there, buddy?
I'm just trying to run for cover here.
Hey, welcome to the show. We're here every Monday at 10 a.m. for a little breakdown of what went on the day before. Chris and I do this. Happy to have you along, whether you're watching on Twitter, on Facebook, or on YouTube. Going to talk about the Bills' loss to the Jets yesterday, a little bit around the NFL, and get some feedback from you on Twitter and Facebook as we get to crowd noise. But, Chris, a tough loss to swallow, really. The Bills seemingly in command. There were points in the first half when I thought they own this game. They can do whatever they want against this team. They went to the fourth quarter with a 7-point lead, and it slipped away. And the big issues for the Bills, I thought, in this game were turnovers and special teams play. Both of them conspired to make it a loss and a tough one to handle.
Yeah, in a big way. I mean, you look at where the Jets got the ball early in this game. It was on the Bills' half of the field, and we can get into more detail on that in a little bit here. But the bottom line is special teams was substandard yesterday in many different areas, and they didn't take care of the football. I mean, they had 3 turnovers at the end of it. Josh Allen had a hand in every single one of them. And, you know, the Jets finish a +1 on the day in the turnover department. And even though both teams only got 3 points off of those turnovers, it changed the scope of the game to the point where Buffalo, who looked like they were in control, I mean, it was 17-6 at one point. I worry that there were points in that game where the Bills thought, well, we've got this thing won. It's just like the last time when we went up big on them. Jets aren't going to come back on us, and the Jets had other ideas.
Yeah, the Bills gave them chances, and they went to the fourth quarter with a 7-point Buffalo lead. At this point, you thought, well, the Bills can score when they want, right? Wrong. And the Jets got better. Sam Darnold, I thought, got better as the game went along.
Best play of the game right here.
Yeah, really great escapability. Really good mobility for the rookie quarterback. Back in the starting lineup, had to leave in the first half, came back after missing one series, and a nice touchdown pass to Robbie Anderson right there, 7-yard touchdown pass. The Bills, second to last drive of the game, they moved the ball downfield, but they had to settle for field goals in the second half for the most part, Chris, and that wasn't enough as it turned out.
Right. You know, Isaiah Mackenzie and Robert Foster did a nice job of helping Josh Allen out when he needed it. This was a big 38-yard play to kind of get them deep into Jets territory, but you know, you look at the red zone touchdown percentage at the end of this game, and for the Bills, it was 40%. For the Jets, it was 75%. And in a 4-point game, that's the difference in the game.
Darnold did it again on the Jets' last drive. This was a perfect pass to Robbie Anderson, 37 yards. Laid it in there perfectly over Tre'Davious White. Not much Tre'Davious could do with that one, and it led to this touchdown. Elijah McGuire, good-looking second-year running back who was filling in for Isaiah Crowell, who had left the game with an injury. He scores the go-ahead touchdown. The Bills got the ball back again, but Josh Allen threw his second interception of the game. And it was a tough one, Chris. It really was a tough loss to accept because we know the Bills. I think the Bills are better than the New York Jets, although it didn't play out that way yesterday. But the Bills aren't good enough to make those mistakes, to give up those big plays on special teams and to turn the ball over the way they did. They're not that good against anybody in the league.
And it's unfortunate because to a certain extent they improved in the penalty area, which has been a trouble spot for them for most of this season. But then something else seems to crop up. And yesterday it was special teams, which wasn't all that good last week either, for that matter. You know, and then turning the football over, and the offensive line not performing up to standard either. And that's been a recurring theme this season for them, and we'll get into that a little bit later, too.
It was the first matchup of the 2 rookie quarterbacks, though. Josh Allen of the Bills, Sam Darnold of the Jets. A couple of buddies who spent a lot of time during the offseason with each other in the pre-draft run-up. And I thought it was fun to watch, and I think it's a good kind of a preview of what we might get from these two down the stretch. I thought Josh Allen played well, maybe not quite as well as he played in the last couple of games, and the turnovers definitely go on his ledger. That's tough to take. I thought Sam Darnold, as I said a few minutes ago, got better, and he is a good passer, Chris. And I know, you know, the numbers don't add up. He's upside down on turnovers, right? Too many interceptions, but he is a talented passer. I think he's probably the best passer, and I said passer, of the 5 rookie quarterbacks this year.
Yeah.
Just pure passer.
Some people may ask you to define what that means.
I mean, a guy who can get the ball where he wants it to go with accuracy, with enough velocity, and quickly. He's got a tremendously quick release. We were looking at that in the pregame.
I think his accuracy is at the top of the group. I wouldn't debate that for a second, although Baker Mayfield's probably right there with him in terms of pure accuracy throwing the football. That Robbie Anderson pass at the end of the game is a perfect example of that. And then the touchdown pass on the move. I also think he's ahead of the curve in terms of recognizing coverage and making a decision with the football. I think that is where Josh Allen still needs some development, and that is what Brandon Beane said when he drafted him. Josh is not a finished product, he's got a longer road to travel than a guy like Sam Darnold, who just seems to have a knack for reading coverage, having a plan, and ripping it because he's confident in what he's looking at coverage-wise. He just seems to have a quicker recognition at this stage of their respective careers.
Yeah, Josh is by no means a finished product. And let's look at his game as we get into 4-down territory. And our first down deals with Josh Allen's start yesterday, his third consecutive start after returning from the elbow injury. He had some good moments, and he had some bad moments. More running for Josh Allen in this game. He did a pretty good job on the ground. Ran for a touchdown, ran for a lot of yardage. Maybe running a little bit too often, but when you think about it, Chris, he is the best offensive option they have.
He's the only one, really, in terms of the run game. It's a shame. And I know you and I were going back and forth about arguing about, is he running too much? Is it not sustainable? If he can gain that yardage, you take it, but you don't want him to be the only one getting yardage on the ground. That's where I have an issue with it. I mean, you look at Josh Allen, this is the third straight week he's led the team in rushing because they can't run the football. They do not have an offensive line capable of winning the battles at the line of scrimmage, and because of that, there are no holes for the running backs to exploit. And what you have is minimal gains on the ground with everybody else except Josh Allen. And the only reason Josh Allen's getting rushing yards is because everybody at the second and third level of the opposing defense has their back turned to him. So all he has to do is break contain at the line, and then he's off and running. That's great, but, running-wise, there has to be better balance in this offense. You cannot ask your rookie quarterback to be the entire offense. And you look at everybody else, it was 22 carries for 75 yards yesterday. That's 3.4 a carry. And in Coach McDermott's mind, because I asked him directly, it's simply not good enough.
3 turnovers for Josh Allen yesterday. You saw the fumble.
Those you put on him.
The fumble in the run game, and then a couple of interceptions. Taryn Johnson got them both. Both turnovers, difficult to see, but that'll happen. I mean, look, we went into the season and even into yesterday's game expecting, a difficult road ahead for Josh Allen. And the road got a little bit more difficult yesterday with those turnovers, especially the one at the end. But there's good signs and bad signs. Best news is there's a lot more room to work on for Josh Allen, I believe.
Right, and I think
a lot
his
more
game,
time to get
right, and I think his game will improve with a better run game to support him, which we really haven't seen to this point this season. The only 100-yard rushing game that the Bills have was LaShawn McCoy in the first meeting with the Jets, and in my opinion, the Jets just kind of laid down and didn't show up for work that day. Because they showed up yesterday, and yesterday was the defensive front I was expecting to see from the Jets in the first meeting. We saw it yesterday. They were much more effective and won the majority of the battles at the line of scrimmage. If you don't have a run game to support Josh, it's very hard for him to advance his game in totality, because now he's not only in charge of throwing the football, he's in charge of running it as well. I mean, last week's a perfect example. He's accountable for 366 of the 415 total net yards on offense. I mean, he put the team on his back. To ask him to do that every week, especially with his level of experience right now, I don't think you're going to come out on the right side of the ledger too often, because he's going to make mistakes. He's a young guy.
We're in 4-down territory. Our second down deals with another aspect of the offense, and the contributions made by some of the young wide receivers. Kelvin Benjamin is gone. Andre Holmes is gone, so more opportunities for guys like Foster, and a good game for Foster. Made a big catch early on. He had 7 catches, 104 yards. Isaiah Mackenzie had a good game as well. At the Bills, the young receivers, guys getting a chance to play, are getting better. They're more than just speed guys, too, although the speed is important. Mackenzie has become an offensive weapon in the run game as well. And look, these guys are fighting for jobs for next year's roster, and I can see why they'd be motivated to show strong in these games, Chris. There's more opportunities for them, 3 more down the road.
Yeah, and I've got to give credit to Coach Dable, because Isaiah Mackenzie, while he is a weapon, you have to design ways to get him out in space. This is not a guy who is going to get yards after contact, because he is so diminutive in stature. So credit Coach Dable for getting him out on the edges, finding space for him to exploit a defense, getting blockers out in front of him. Robert Foster, he's got the physicality and the size and speed package that you look for in NFL deep threats, and they're asking him to do more now. I mean, he's in there on that little shovel across for a big gainer in the red zone. He makes a big play at the end of the game for 38 yards where they're trying to get down the field to take the lead. So, I like what we're seeing from Foster. I think with the offseason we're anticipating, though, Murph, yes, these guys will probably be on the roster next year, but they can't be the number 2 and 3 receivers.
Let alone the number 1, you're right.
Yeah, you need proven weapons to be added. Go-to guys that you target 8 to 12 times a game, so your quarterback can raise the level of the passing game next year.
We're in 3-down territory. 3rd down is kind of a downer, quite frankly, and it deals with the injuries. Both teams had a number of injuries yesterday. The Bills suffered a significant injury late in the game when Matt Milano, who's been so important to their defensive success this year, got his left leg rolled up. It looked like his ankle was bent in the wrong direction when Sam Darnold fell on top of him. Matt Milano had to be carted off the field. It does not look good. Sean McDermott had no further indication on how serious the injury is. I guess we're anticipating it's serious. And look, Chris, this is a guy who is on a defense that was starved for takeaways the first half of the season. Milano's been a constant producer in that area, right? 6 takeaways going into yesterday's game. I'm not going to proclaim his season over, but it certainly looks like it's going to be a pretty serious injury for Matt Milano.
Yeah, and he's been a dynamic player in coverage as well. And when it's never good when you're getting carted off. So, you almost hope it's a broken bone and not some kind of ligament damage or anything, because that takes longer to heal. So hopefully he's just got a broken leg, ankle, something, and they can just cast it up and he's good to go for the balance of the offseason come April or so. Second guy that goes down with a lower leg injury. We had Bodine last week who had to have surgery.
Essentially
for
2
a broken
defensive
fibula.
Starters.
Well,
I'm talking about Taryn Johnson.
You're talking about Taryn Johnson and shoulder surgery.
Yeah.
Bodine last week. The center goes down and has to have surgery for a lower leg injury too.
Yeah, and other injuries yesterday too. LaShawn McCoy played a little bit in the first quarter, left the game with a hamstring, never returned. And his backup, Chris Ivory, with the same shoulder that he missed a couple of games with this year.
He landed on it at the end of the play. Nobody landed on top of him, but he landed with his full body weight on that shoulder and then came to the sideline immediately after. And you could see he was trying to rotate the shoulder socket, trying to loosen it up again. But he did not come back in the game either, I don't believe. I didn't remember seeing him after that play because it was near the very end of the game. And Marcus Murphy was on the field for the final drive. Yeah. You have to believe that Ivory would probably be out there in an important situation like that.
4th down in 4-down territory. It was tough to watch Bill's special teams. Rough day for Stephen Hauschka as he had a couple of problems, and kick returns were a big issue for the Bills. Andre Roberts killed him with a 51-yard kick return, an 86-yard kick return. He had another 26-yarder that was called back because of a penalty. But Hauschka's kicks were funny, Chris. They were all short, and then he went to a squib kick. Didn't have much success for that, too.
Yeah.
There was concern in my mind about the physical status of Stephen Hauschka after the hit he took at the end of the first half, and also about the coverage in general. It certainly wasn't good enough, and the Bills are not good enough overall to suffer these kind of kick returns. I will say this. When you look at the guys trying to run down these kicks, many of these guys weren't even on the roster, a couple of months ago. They're trying to make do with their patchwork roster, so that would be difficult to do, but it's got to be better than what they were.
Right. I mean, you got a lot of practice squad players that are playing full-time special teams, probably about 4 or 5. And look, penalties were a season-long issue for this unit. There were fewer penalties yesterday, but there were more busts in terms of the return game. I mean, 4 of the Jets' first 5 possessions happened in Bills territory. 2 because of kick returns and 2 because of turnovers. And when you're going to hand your defense short fields, I mean, you're really asking a lot of them. I mean, they've asked a lot of this defense all season long, but to put them on less than 50 yards for the Jets to gain, to get points on the board, I mean, that's a big ask. Yeah. I'm sorry. So you couple that with the kicking problems that occurred yesterday. Granted, the ball is like a rock in this kind of weather. When you've got a 54-yarder that Hauschka's trying to attempt in 28-degree temperatures, that ball's not going to fly very far, and I thought it was a pretty good effort for a 54-yarder. But, you had problems last week, you had problems this week in the kick game. There's got to be some changes and some fixes that happen there, because you look at the end of the day, the average drive start for the Bills, their own 27-yard line. For the Jets, it was their own 47-yard line. Now you say, 20 yards, what's the difference? Well, you add that up over 11 possessions, and those 20 yards add up to an awful lot of yardage.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
We talked about injuries a minute ago. I'm wondering about Hauschka, who I talked to in the locker room at the end of the game, who said he'll have to wait until today to determine how he feels. He had a back injury from that late hit at the end of that blocked field goal, and I think he's concerned with that.
Yeah.
And how that, he said it affected his kicks in the second half yesterday, and he's concerned going forward if he's going to be able to play.
I asked Coach McDermott after the game if kicking it through the end zone was not an option. The ball just wouldn't carry in the weather, and when the ball is cold, it doesn't fly as far either. And I didn't get a direct answer on that, but Jason Myers had trouble doing it too. He only had 1 touchback in the game also. So I think the weather conditions really played a role in the strategy there, because kicking it through the back of the end zone to prevent returns did not look like it was on the table yesterday.
All right, let's get to some of your feedback. Let's get to the segment we call Crowd Noise. You're the crowd. You provide the noise, your thoughts, your questions on yesterday's game. We'll go to social media to get your comments on the Bills' loss to the Jets. And we start with Twitter from JW Sox. 7 of the teams remaining in the playoff hunt in the AFC the Bills have played this year. I don't think any team played harder than the Jets yesterday. Very physical. They were physical. They seemed to be motivated. They seemed to play with an edge, maybe a little bit over the edge from time to time. But the Bills have, I think, for the most part, played some pretty tough opponents. I think that nobody's laid down against them. I wouldn't give the Jets that much credit.
I don't know if I want to give them that much credit either, but yesterday was a very physical game. I mean, guys were going out of this game on both sides. I mean, you had half a dozen guys that had left the game because they got nicked up or injured on both sides. And, I mean, it was a battle of attrition come the second half. I mean, the Bills are down to the last running back. The Jets had their starting running back out. A bunch of guys went out, came back in. It was a battle, no question about it. So, I mean, you want to characterize it as a physical beatdown type of contest, I'll give you that.
I agree. All right. More crowd noise as you weigh in on what you saw yesterday. We'll go to Facebook. Denver Smith. Question for crowd noise. Do you think we can expect to see Allen progress as a mobile quarterback, or is his mobility a function of the current offensive line?
I think it's a little bit of both, don't you?
I'm going to say that, yeah. I think it is a little bit of both. They want him to run a little bit. They want him to be mobile. I don't think they want him to run as often or as much as he has the last couple of weeks. But a lot of it is survival, trying to make something happen, trying to pick up first downs. That's what leads to those runs,
It's unfortunately by necessity.
Yeah.
Because there were times yesterday, even more so than the previous week against Miami, where the protection just simply was not there. It was not there, and he had to get out to the edges quickly to keep a play alive.
Yep.
I mean, he was trying to just stay behind the line of scrimmage, roll to his right or left, depending on the play, to try to extend the play, make something happen, and it was because of breakdowns in protection. And it just seemed to me to be more frequent yesterday than it was against Miami, where he saw opportunities to run with everybody with their back turned and then would take off to do so against the Dolphins. Yesterday, I think he was running because he was trying to avoid getting sacked, and at the end of the day, Jets have 3 sacks, 10 quarterback hits, and 4 tackles for loss. I mean, that's a bad stat line for your offensive line when you see that.
All right, one more from Crowd Noise. You're as you weigh in on yesterday's game. Justin Calhoun on Twitter. What offensive issues do we address first in the offseason? Offensive line or wide receiver? Shady isn't shady this season. Do we look for another number 1 running back as well? You raised good questions, Justin Calhoun, and which do you do first? I mean, right now I'd say offensive line, but you need playmakers, you need receivers as well.
It's 1 and 1A.
Yeah, and you got the draft, and you got before that free agency, about 6 or 8 weeks before the draft. So it depends on what I think the free agent crop looks like, where the value is. I expect the Bills to be searching for value, not necessarily splash guys, either at receiver or offensive line.
You're in a desperate situation, though, here to upgrade this offensive line. I mean, it has to be better next year. So there might be, we see how free agency works, Murph. This is no secret. 90% of the time, you've got to overpay. And they may have to overpay to get some questions definitively answered. I mean, you need a plug-and-play guy or 2 on your offensive line for next year. You need a plug-and-play true number 1 for your wide receiving core. You're going to have to shell out a lot of money to land something like that. Here in Buffalo, yes, there are attractive things about this team. You're playing with a lights-out defense that's ranked number 1 in the league now, and you have a young quarterback who can reach you with the football no matter where you are on the field. So those you would hope are enticing things for prospective free agents to want to come here and get this thing completely turned around. But I fear they're going to have to overpay for at least a couple of those acquisitions because that's just how free agency works.
And Justin's question, do we look for another number 1 running back as well? That would not be my top priority in either free agency or the draft, and I would wait until middle rounds.
Yeah.
Not too many teams now have a lot of money or tied up in a number 1 running back. We'll see where Shady is. Brandon Beane is on record as saying he's going to have him back next year, but we'll see where that goes. And if you fix the offensive line, Shady may be a different player also.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason he has struggled so much. There just aren't holes to exploit there, and his running style is difficult to succeed when holes are there for a quarter of a second.
Yeah.
He kind of surveys things and then hits his hole. There's no time to wait here, which is why Chris Ivory at times has been okay because he's such a downhill runner. There is no hesitation in his run.
All right, let's get into our 2-minute offense as we look at some of the other action in the NFL yesterday. Pretty good game in Kansas City. The Ravens in Kansas City. This one went right down to the wire and beyond. Fourth quarter, 4th and 9. Mahomes, that play was supposed to go to the left. It goes to the right. Pat Mahomes on 4th and 9 hits Tyreek Hill, who scoots downfield, picks up the first down, keeps the drive alive as we get down to the final minute. Another 4th down, 4th and 3 near the goal line, and a pass for a touchdown here to Damian Williams. Ties it up. They go to overtime. Butker hits the field goal to put Kansas City up 27-24. Last chance for Baltimore, and this is RG3 who throws the incompletion, and Kansas City wins at 27-24 in overtime. A great game for the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday.
Colts and Texans in an AFC South showdown, and Andrew Luck, all tied at 7, finds his touchdown maker Eric Ebron to go ahead, now up 3 in the third quarter, and looking to the back of the end zone. Let's make it a 10-point lead. Mr. Pascal for the touchdown. Colts end the Texans' 9-game winning streak.
They call it the Miami Miracle, and here it is. The Dolphins down by 5 to New England. Last play of the game, 1 lateral, 2 laterals. That's Kenyon Drake, the running back, with the football at the 40-yard line. Cuts upfield, 1 man to beat. That's Rob Gronkowski, who can't quite get there. And the Miami Dolphins win it 34-33 on a miraculous finish at Hard Rock Stadium.
Raiders and Steelers out west in Oakland. Derek Carr finding the tight end carrier for a touchdown to go up 24-21 late in the game. The Steelers call out the fire trucks. Time for the hook and ladder. Juju Smith-Schuster down the left sideline. Is he going to make it all the way? Still going down to the 22. Sets up this field goal attempt to tie it, but Boswell slips on the turf. Kick is blocked. Steelers lose.
Lions in Arizona. Detroit's here next week. This play, Darius Slay picks off Josh Rosen, who's had a difficult first season so far, runs it all the way back for the pick 6, and the Detroit Lions go on to beat the woeful Arizona Cardinals 17-3, the final score.
Sunday night football in the Windy City. Rams and Bears. Jared Goff, look out! Eddie Goldman for the safety. And then Trubisky on the read option, rolling out. Finds the offensive lineman, Bradley Soule. Get on that horse, Bradley. It's a touchdown. Holy mackerel. And then here's Jared Goff back to pass, trying to bring the Rams back, but he throws it to the Prince. Amukamara with the 4th interception of Jared Goff. Bears win. Bears win.
I don't remember you getting that excited when Deion Dawkins caught a touchdown pass early this
Well,
season.
I wasn't calling it. You did. Who are these guys, right?
Yeah, that was it. All right, let's take a look ahead now. The week ahead as the Bills move into another week. As we said, the Detroit Lions coming here to New Era Field to play the Bills this coming week. And first up for the Bills is to find out about injuries, Chris. Look, we know Milano's pretty serious. I don't expect that he'll be playing. But the running back spot, McCoy left in the first quarter with that hamstring.
Yeah.
Chris Ivory with the shoulder. What are we talking about? They're going to have to add a running back to the roster this week?
I mean, if both of those guys are not looking good for this weekend, I would say yes. I mean, you only have Marcus Murphy. You got Keith Ford on the practice squad, the undrafted rookie. So he's been on the practice squad all year long. You know he knows the offense. Kind of a downhill runner with a little bit of wiggle. Put together, too, at about 220 pounds and 5'11". So be interesting to see if they feel he has to be called up. Let's not forget, Taryn Johnson has not been put on injured reserve yet.
That's
so
right.
You would anticipate that could be the move to create a roster spot for a running back if they need to.
As we mentioned, the Bills now have lost a couple of defensive starters in the last 2 games. Taryn Johnson, the nickel corner, and Matt Milano. And for Milano, they're going to have to find a replacement.
Yeah. Maybe it's Deion Lacey. You need somebody that can run and cover, and Lacey can do that. He's not a thumper in the run game if you want run support and tackling at the line of scrimmage. But if you need somebody in coverage, that's probably the next logical option. Maybe Corey Thompson, the kid who got called up from the practice squad, another guy that can run and cover. So it'll be interesting to see, what kind of skill set they're going to look for there, knowing all the things that Milano did.
Lions come in with a 5-8 record this week. They lost 5 of their 6 before that previous 6 before they win in Arizona. This game is going to feature a couple of old Patriots coaches kind of going head-to-head. Lions head coach Matt Patricia, kind of a defensive guru, against the Bills' Brian Daboll. I'm sure they know each other extremely well.
Yeah, they go back a long way. I think even before their time together with the Patriots. I can't quite remember where they had crossed paths previously, but they've been going at each other for quite a while. Actually, I think they might have traveled in the same circles in college, played in the same conference at lower Division I or Division II level. So they've known each other for probably upwards of 20 years. So he knows them. They know him,
yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting matching of wits, if you will, with the X's and O's, because Patricia kind of runs that defense there in Detroit. Obviously, Daboll runs the offense here. who's going to get the better of them. It might be the most interesting matchup in this game, quite frankly.
Yeah, really, because there's so many players injured, especially for the Bills. Hey, we're going to talk more about yesterday's game today. Coming up at noon today, noon to 3, One Bills Live. Myself, Steve Tasker, Chris Brown will join us at 1 o'clock. Make sure you join us on WGR Sports Radio 550 and on MSG on the TV side. That'll do it for us today for Monday Morning Breakdown. Thanks very much for tuning in. We'll see you next Monday at 10 a.m. Thanks for watching.